afternoon, good night. How you doing? This is MCM and you're listening to You're Probably Right. Today we are going to have a serious conversation. Well, maybe not a serious conversation, but there's going to be a serious talk happening here. Now, of course, I'm only doing the talking, but just stay tuned. Hello, everyone. You are listening to You're Probably Right, and I am your host, MCM. I think I got another good one for you today. Hoping I can share this one now a little wider or broader or farther than I would normally share my podcast. But I've tried to talk about this, not at length, but tried to get really specific, but I'm having issues talking about this subject because I love to try to be as honest and as open and as clear in my communication as I can possibly be on the fly. I don't have somebody searching stuff up for me. I'm just an average dude, just doing a podcast as I have for the past, 4 or 5 years at this point. I guess that doesn't make this very evergreen, but the information might be. I actually, you never know. That's not even the point. Today's episode, this is episode 220. The topic, well, not the topic, the title. See, this is a good thing. You know it's not AI because I fumble around all the time with my words, and it's annoying, but being a person who listens to a lot of podcasts and realized that there's so many people regularly, and the reason why I say regularly is because I've tried this for, I think, 2 episodes I tried, maybe 3, 2.5, where AI, my AI voice was the speaker. And no matter what, no matter how good AI voice is, and they're getting better, and as I said, I'm pretty sure someone's gonna put default mistakes where they want them to be, not like pronouncing words like read at the wrong times, which then you generally can definitely know it's AI. There's other ways too, but it's good to know that podcasts have people still making these podcasts, people with lived experience, And I'm not saying that the information that is collected and pasted in a voice speaks the words. It's not the same thing, but it's just a different, our brain, although computers probably have some sort of webbed out information system where they can go this, that, and the other, but ours, I think our webs are probably curved and bent differently. So because we experience things, and sometimes our brain will just veer off in another direction, and I think the ability to be distracted or to take the topic in another direction all of a sudden out of the blue, I think that's where people have AI beat. It's out of the blue. So remember, you heard it here first. And if you know what I'm talking about, then you just know. Anyhow, it's episode 220. Athletic and academic steroids. How private resources are warping real achievement. And I'm sure some of you already know what I'm talking about at this point. And for those of you who don't, in today's world, success is both in academics. Sorry, I put my glasses to read this thing, and still doesn't seem like it's really going to do me any justice. But let me start over. In today's world, success in both academics and athletics is increasingly driven by access to private resources rather than raw talent. We believe, or we think, we live in a merit-based society, although it seems like many don't like that idea. Um, Sorry guys, I gotta move this thing. I'm trying. I spent all the time with this thing and I'm still having issues. Ugh. It's kind of funny. I use two screens, as many of you know, to do my podcast and stuff I read off of if I'm not just riffing off whatever I think. And I'm finding it's easier to read on the left screen than the right screen. Weird. I'm sure there's probably some scientific basis why that probably works. Maybe left brain, right brain, whatever it is. So I got my and just so you can get a visual, because I don't have visuals at this time. I have the meter, so I use Adobe Audition to do my recordings, and then like all the technical stuff on that side. And then on the left screen, I have my information that I might read if I'm reading anything, or just questions that I'm reading off and answering. For some reason, it works better to the left. to the left. Anyhow, let's go. Let's go back to the beginning. It's only 2 sentences. Okay. In today's world, success is in both academics and athletics is increasingly driven by access to private resources rather than raw talent. We like to believe we live in a merit-based society, but more often than not, the playing field is anything but level. Kids enrolled in tutoring centers like Kumon or elite programs like Mamba Academy and AA in the States, AAU, are receiving the equivalent of educational and athletic performance enhancers. They're not necessarily more gifted. They're just better trained and better resourced. And I think we lose a lot of the talent pool that way. And I think sometimes there's a come up that could possibly happen for those who were born into maybe not poverty, or just with parents who are just too busy to do the AAU or the Kumon thing, or just not enough money, or too many kids and the money can't go around, or whatever the different reasons are for a kid not being put into it, or many just don't believe in it or are too lazy. Many kids get that opportunity, many kids don't. And I think we shorten the talent pool when things are this way. I think what ends up happening is teachers have to teach less. The teachers in public school system, of course, I'm talking about. Obviously, private schools and prep schools and all those are going to be the way they're going to be. But I'm more talking about kids who are enrolled in public education, and then parents in the evenings, how many times a week, I don't know, have them in their little careers after school, whether it's a swimming program, hockey program, basketball program, math program, science program, engineering program, robotics program, and the list goes on and on and on and on. But what does this mean for the rest of the kids? What about those who rely solely on public education and neighborhood gyms? They are often labeled as underachievers, when in fact they're just unenhanced. The truth is, we are rewarding polish over potential, access over ability, and in the process, we're leaving behind entire populations of students who never had the chance to catch up. In this episode, we're looking at the science, psychology, and social consequence of being behind this widening gap, from cognitive overtraining to social perception bias. We'll break down how structural inequalities is disguising itself as mediocrity. if you work in education, sports, or social services, or if you're a parent, I think you need to hear this. Now, I'm going to do my best, and the only issue I'm going to have is that in putting this together, there's times when I really want to veer off of the script. Well, it's not really a script, but it is. I'm just worried that I'm going to turn it into, it's really weird. Sometimes I've noticed when I'm doing my podcast is that sometimes like in this particular area, I have a lot of experience being a parent, being someone who has worked in education before, who has played many sports and obviously went to school. But I'm trying to stick to the proper info that is not just floating around in my head at this point, which is a little bit not only distracting but a little frustrating at times, because sometimes I just want to go off. And I know that if I just go off into my head space of what I'm thinking about right this second, I might not necessarily contradict the information, but I might lay out some stuff before time and really throw things off. So I'm trying to just stick to the script, as they say, because I can talk. I can talk. Been talking. And I think I need a puffer. So I'm going to pause this for a second. And I'll be back quicker than you can, whatever, 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. Hang on. There we go. I don't know if that feels better. Anyway, just remember, this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. So it could be one of 2 things. Either, hey, come listen to the clown. He has no idea what he's talking about because I know this information. That could be your stance. Or it could be, oh, I didn't know. Let's hope it's one or the other. I guess there's all kinds of possible equations you could get out of this podcast, but I'm not trying to cast aspersions at anybody or on anybody. I'm not a professor, and I don't profess to be a professor of anything, except a professing Christian, of course. But anyway, let's go, because I've already burnt up 12 minutes just rambling. Well, sort of. Okay, first, the hidden curriculum of access. Let's start with an uncomfortable truth. Success in school isn't just about what you know. It's about knowing how to learn, how to perform, how to navigate the system. Pierre Bourdieu called this cultural capital. The unspoken rules and behaviors that middle and upper class families often teach their kids without even realizing it. When a student goes to Kumon or Sylvan, they're not just improving in math. They're being trained to perform. They're learning exam language, pacing, academic mindset. This gives them a head start that has nothing to do with IQ or effort. It's learned advantage. These tutoring centers are teaching meta skill set that public school teachers don't have the time or mandate to focus on. It's not cheating, but it's also not fair. And kids who don't have access to these services are being judged by the same standards without being given the same preparation. So the public school kids with raw intelligence but no tutoring might fall behind the privately coached student, not because of lack of talent, but because of lack of polish. This is how systems fail bright minds without ever breaking any rules. And it starts early. If we're not aware of these hidden curriculums, we can't call education equitable. And people are always crying, oh, we need everything for everyone, right? We're evaluating students on a curve tilted towards those with outside support. That's not fair. It's not a fair race. That's a fixed one. You understand what I'm saying? It's like you have two kids and they're both fast, but you give one a pair of shoes. Now, every once in a while, the kid without the shoes is going to be able to outperform the kid with the shoes. I've seen it before. I think I probably talked about it on this podcast before. I knew two girls, related or not, two people I knew very, very well. And there was a picnic that I was at, and hopefully this is gonna help your mind to work to draw it in. But basically, what happened was there was one girl who actually both girls. Very funny enough. There you go. Perfect. Well, I don't know if it's gonna be perfect. Both women were of Jamaican descent. So we already know this is going to be a pretty fast running race, right? Most likely. One girl took her shoes off. The other girl kept her shoes on. And in this case, the girl who took the shoes off beat the girl who had her shoes on. It was a very fast race. I mean, I was a pretty fast kid. Not that fast, but fast enough to beat either one of these girls, but not by a lot, put it that way. Needless to say, one of them got a scholarship to a university in the States, and one didn't. Who do you think got the scholarship? Not the girl with the barefoot, the other one. Anyhow, but I'm just trying to say, and if I think they raced a couple years down the line or whatever, and the girl who had the shoes, they're both wearing shoes and smoked her. But the point is, she got through training. She got education, how to run, how to start, mid-race, finish race, all these different things of education that blew just being fast out of the water. And not sure if I'm going to touch on it that much, but I think personally, and maybe this is my biggest point, and I'm not even going to belabor it. I'm not going to go on too much, but I think when it comes to public education, at least in Canada, I can't say for the States for sure, I think there should be, and I know there is in music in Canada at some level, but I think that there should be some onus on the parents to declare that their students, their child has been taught outside of school. Because you also have kids who are being taught outside of school and then sitting inside of a classroom where many teachers are doing bare minimum or just sticking to the curriculum that they've been given or that they've been teaching for years, some half-assed, some wholeheartedly. And a lot of the time they teach to the higher achieving students. They don't try to break things down. They just, look at a curriculum and say, okay, well, this is grade 5. And if anybody's not performing or at the grade 5 level, it's either they're not doing their work, they need an IEP, individual education plan, or what other reasons they could come up with as to why they're not at the level of, as I said before, maybe 17, no, not 17, let's say 13 out of 20 kids, doing something after school, whether it's sports we're talking about or whether it's something like math, and their marks are higher because the people who are teaching them or the people who are training them know what is expected, know what the curriculum is, and are able to coach those students in whatever it is to meet and excel above the teaching and the curriculum that the public school board is offering. And then, of course, the parents see, wow, little Johnny got an A plus. And he's disinterested in what they're trying to teach at school, but the kids getting good marks, right? So parents are going to keep paying, and the outside teacher, coach is going to get paid, right? And Little Johnny will probably have access to university, possibly a part scholarship if they're athletic. I mean, I'm not saying that AAU or a Mamba or Elite or whatever it is can coach a kid who has no athletic ability. That's not what I'm saying. Although they do, and I've seen it, where kids don't really have a lot of athletic ability, but they give them the know how. At lower levels, they can compete. Obviously, it tapers off after a while once the real physicality of a young man or young woman can surpass, and coaches, even at a public school level, can figure out who needs to really be spent time on. I've seen coaches, as a matter of fact, who are teachers, spend a lot more time because they want that win under their belt with a couple girls playing a sport, rather than giving extra time, extra help for students who are maybe failing math. And it's sad. Not to say that winning an area or winning a tournament or winning the season's best or city team, state team, province team is not important. But when you're a teacher and you're failing students in certain courses because you're not really digging down deep and teaching, because most of your class is doing well in a certain area and there's ones who are falling behind, and they know, well, if I get 75% of the students above 75 average in math, then it's going to look like I'm doing my job. So I can go spend time over here. And sadly, it happens. I know people don't think it happens, but it's happening. Next, we have cognitive overtraining in education. You've probably heard of Malcolm Gladwell, right? 10,000 hour rule. It's funny, I'm in 10,000 minute rule right now for my podcast. Anyhow, that's a whole other thing. But it originated from the work of K. Anderson Erickson, who studied deliberate practice. The point wasn't just about putting in hours, it was about structured, repetitive, feedback-based training. That's exactly what tutoring centers and private education programs do. They give kids reps, and you'll hear a lot of athletes talk about reps. You just need more reps, more repetitions, and that's pretty much everything. If you're trying to be, let's just say, a better foul shooter in basketball, you'd be surprised. You're thinking, oh, I just need to shoot, maybe 53 free throws a day, and that'll do it. I even heard, matter of fact, I was watching a video today. It was about, what's his name? Amon St. Brown or Amon Ra. I can't remember how you say his name, but St. Brown, I'm pretty sure you've heard of him by now after I'm saying this. If you hadn't known before, at this point, I think he was in the Detroit Lions for NFL. But I know I'm veering off a little bit. Remember, we're talking about kids have reps. Okay, so what happened was this guy, St. Brown's father, was a bodybuilder, and I think he appeared and competed in the Mr. Universe bodybuilding championship twice in his life. And apparently he was really good at it. And he developed a plan with his, I think, 2 or 3 sons that he wanted his kids to make the NFL one day. And he figured if he trained them really hard, and they set a goal that they could attain this NFL goal, because obviously dad had attained the highest level of bodybuilding. Whether or not he won, I'm not really sure, but that's not the point. The point is he was able to get his kids to a certain level, and he noticed his son is I think at that time, I don't know, might have been a wide receiver, and he noticed that there was this other kid who had very good hands, and he's catching everything and holding onto the ball, and he was like wondering, how is this possible? So, which makes sense. What he does was he goes over to the kid's father and he goes, "Man, your kid's really good and he has really good hands. What are you doing?" He says, "I got him a jug machine." And that's the jug machine, where you put the football right between the two wheels that spin and it shoots out a ball like it was passed from a quarterback. And he says he has a jug machine and his kid catches 200 catches a day. Rain or shine, 200 catches. And St. Brown's father was like, "Oh, okay, that's cool. That's good. I mean, he's really good. Good luck on all that, And I'm thinking about, I'm going to probably get one maybe." And the guy probably said, "Yeah, makes sense. Go ahead." Anyhow, I never heard of this other kid, but I know St. Brown's two kids, I think it's 2 sons or 3 sons, are in the NFL. Because he had more reps. You know what I mean? I think, honestly, if he didn't hear about the jug machine and he didn't figure out how to get the kid more reps, more to catch the ball more, like, there's a fine line in the total elite athlete that makes it to the NFL from the like just from university level. Who knows? He might not even have made it to university if he didn't get that idea. But the point is what he did. He said, "Okay, my kids are going to now use the jug machine and they're going to catch 202 balls." And that's exactly what they did. They did what that kid was doing and more. And they say 202, but chances are it was probably more like 250. Just being real. Maybe even 300. Just like in athletics, these reps matter, as I was saying just now. The more you practice under guidance, the more efficient your brain becomes at solving problems. This is neuroplasticity in action. So when 2 students walk into a test, one with hundreds of private reps under their belt and the other with only classroom exposure, and that's when they're not distracted, you're going to see a gap. In many cases, a huge gap. But the gap doesn't reflect talent, it reflects repetition. This is where public school kids get left behind. They may be just as capable, same aptitude possibly, maybe more, but they haven't had the volume of exposure or intensity of correction. This creates a false narrative that the high scorers are the smart kids. In reality, though, they may just be more trained. And the worst part, once a student starts falling behind, they are less likely to get attention or opportunities. Educators often mistake preparedness for intelligence. And in that confusion, we abandon kids who could have thrived with the same support. So hopefully you're getting, well, I'm sure you're a smart person, right? you're getting what's happening. And I guess maybe I'm late to the show. You know what I mean? Maybe everybody else already knows this. And I was just like, I used to have friends that used to play, what was it? Just growing up in Toronto, a lot of kids, not a lot of kids, but okay, how to say this? I'm trying to keep this as whatever as possible. I'm not trying to have you go off, and I'm not going to bring different things into this whole conversation. But I had various friends who I grew up with who were able to play hockey. And you probably already know why I'm laughing. Many played house league. Many played something called MTHL, AA, AAA. And I used to play hockey with these kids. Now, put us in floor hockey when I was young. I'm playing hockey. Let's just say there's 10 of us. I'm probably playing against 3 or 4 who are in these leagues who play ice hockey, and I'm better than all of them, right? Floor hockey, right? Or street hockey, road hockey back in the day, right? Put us on ice, and I was useless because I played, but I wasn't in these leagues. My parents didn't have the money to send me, right? Not that great. But I did play a little bit. Used to go skating a lot. Used to go to public skating a lot. Played something called shinny hockey. If you're Canadian, you know what that is. Um, but it's not the same exact thing. So when I started, I can't remember what the year was, but they came out with rollerblades for the average person. So when I say that, in other words, when I was say grade 3, 4, 5, I had friends who were wealthy. One I think of one in particular I think of, who went on to coach hockey, I think in Germany. He was they were, I would say, upper class, upper middle class, and kid used to show up in commercials, and he got to play hockey. He had an ice rink in his backyard, and his name was Todd. I won't give you the last name, but he was really good. But I could tell that if he didn't have a rink in his backyard, and he wasn't if he wasn't exposed to all these different leagues and money, then he probably wouldn't have been that much more advanced than the rest of us. So, and he ended up being a lot smaller and whatever it is. But the bottom line is, as we got older, we started catching him, even though he had all this training. But did we go anywhere with it? No. Did he go anywhere as a player? No. He did get the know-how, which maybe that's why he ended up coaching. When I Googled him. I'm like, what happened to this kid? And I looked him up, and it's like, oh, he was coaching in Europe. But hopefully you can, with the sports side of things, you can kind of get what I'm saying. Okay. 3, the AAU programs are the problem. The AAU. When athletic training gets hijacked, let's shift to sports. Kobe Bryant once called out the AAU system for ruining basketball. Why? Because it prioritized exposure and tournament play over fundamentals and true basketball IQ. Kids in the AAU system are traveling, training with elite coaches, and playing all year round. That sounds great, but it's not about the love of the game anymore. It's about performance at all costs. Meanwhile, there are young athletes with raw talent who don't make the team because they haven't been professionally groomed. They might be quick, strong, or even instinctive, but they haven't been in the machine. Coaches looking to win often pick polished players, smart players, or coached up smart players, not realizing they're passing over unrefined gold, diamonds in the rough. This mirrors what we see in academics. The AAU kids are like the Kumon kids of sports. They're getting the athletic version of academic steroids, and everyone else, well, they're left to fend for themselves on outdoor busted up courts, bad nets, and double rims, and in school fields that aren't properly tended. It's no longer about heart or raw ability. It's about who can afford the reps. And if we're not careful, we'll breed a system that only rewards those who are already ahead. And will also, I guess, just ignore those who never got a fair shot. And I'm seeing this even in the high schools. Now, we didn't really have it before. I mean, we used to have technical schools, and a lot of the kids were better at basketball, say, I can remember some schools that I grew up with in Toronto. Well, I didn't go to those schools, but there were schools that were called technical. I can't, what they were, tech schools or whatever it was. But all I know is those kids, better at football, better at basketball. And we had the better education, supposedly, or we had the higher scores in education. And we used to try to fight against those teams in sports, and we would have a heck of a time trying to keep up. But now there's a lot of, not a lot, there's a few schools, I would say, that teach, or not teach, but have like sports teams that play overseas, that play against cities in the United States, that like like you can get into these schools, but I think the one rule that they have to try to make it a little more even, I don't know. I don't even know what the point of it is. I mean, you could probably think about it, or maybe you already know, but they'll have sports schools, and you have to have 2 or 3 sports, and you have the one that you're going to play at the school apparently can't be your best. It's something like that. But we've started to have sports schools. And what kids are being allowed to go to these sports schools? Not the ones with necessarily raw talent. Not even kids who are really good at one sport. If you only have one sport, apparently they don't even let you in. You have to get a recommendation letter and from teachers and coaches. And a lot of the kids, again, with the raw talent, don't get into those high level sports schools. And you know, the funny thing is, when you pass those schools and you see, even if you're at a gym or you're at a public, better yet, a community center, and you see those kids who have access to the gyms and stuff like that, you can tell that they're physically more fit than just your Johnny on the street. Because let's be real, most kids aren't spending that much time playing basketball or hockey on the street. As a matter of fact, they banned road hockey in York region in Ontario. I think they did that in about 2004 or 3 or something like that. And if you look at hockey in Canada and then you compare it to like hockey in Europe, if you've noticed, Canada is coming back to the field, whereas before we didn't even have to send our NHL players to, say, the Canada Cup or whatever they call it now. They could just send college students or students who were in different programs or different leagues, whatever it is, or college or whatever it is, and they could just send those kids and they'd be good enough to play the professional players in other countries. But now it's different. They're coming back to the field because they've stopped a lot of just average Joe kids from learning the sport as well as others. And I know I kind of cut that off, but it's kind of difficult. You're having a conversation with yourself, and if you have somebody sitting there staring at you, it kind of throws you off. Anyhow, I don't know why I have this window open. Sorry. Anyhow, I'm hoping you're getting the idea. I'm veering off of some of the script, of course, because I'm just trying to put my personal touch on it. I don't want you just getting a bunch of information. If I wanted to do it that way, then I would probably just use my AI voice, or I would just read. So forgive me if I'm jumping around a little bit, but I'm trying to give you a real world experience and understanding of some of these matters. At the same time, I'm trying to give you the straight up information as well. Okay, so next, teachers and coaches mistake access for talent. Here's where it gets dangerous. Studies like the Pygmalion effect show that educators' expectations can shape students' outcome. If a teacher thinks a student is smart, they'll unconsciously treat them in ways that boost their performance. You know, hey Johnny, can you show everybody this on the math on the chalkboard or on the whiteboard or on the smartboard? Right? Not the one where they call up Johnny to embarrass him, right? It's the other one. The other Johnny. But what determines those expectations? Often it's polished. A student who uses academic language shows confidence, or submits clean work is assumed to be gifted. But maybe that student just has support. Maybe their parents review their homework. Maybe they help them with their homework. Maybe they're paying for writing coach or a writing coach. The same happens in sports. A kid with crisp footwork is praised, while a naturally talented player with rough edges gets ignored or sits on the bench if he gets there at all. This creates a feedback loop. The polished kid gets more attention, more encouragement, more chances. The raw one gets passed over. Eventually, their confidence drops, they disengage, and the system says, see, they weren't that good anyway. Except they were. They just weren't trained. This is why equity in education and athletics matters, but at the same time, you don't want it to be the main focus. And you throw the equity out there, but at the same time, maybe I see nothing wrong with somebody wanting their kid to learn more, to be farther advanced, to be able to compete at a higher level. But all I'm saying is we shouldn't be judging them. They shouldn't be allowed to take the same tests. I mean, if the kid's in there, and I this is I guess this would be the difficult part, because some kids are in those programs because they're really horrible at athletics. Their coordination isn't where it should be. They don't know how to solve math problems. The parents suck at math, so they're sending their kids to somebody who can teach them better writing skills. You understand? Like, the different various reasons why people go to those programs in the first place, right? There's a whole bunch of reasons, but I still think that there should be some kind of declaration. I know it's not going to happen because it's the more affluent people who are sending their kids to these things in many cases. I'm not saying that everybody's more affluent. Some is just working hard, double shifting parents, but in many cases it's not that way either. This is why equity in education, as I was saying earlier, matters. It's not about lowering standards. It's about recognizing that many of our current standards are biased towards access and supposed success, not ability. And if we don't fix that, we'll keep rewarding the best resourced, not the best equipped. Next, the equity crisis. And what we can do. And I've already talked about the little things that we could possibly do to make this better for everyone, supposedly. All right. Social workers and education researchers have been sounding the alarm on this issue for years. Inequity, inequality in schools outcomes isn't just about schools. It's about everything outside of them. Quiet study spaces, nutrition, sleep, mentorship, practice, access. When students from wealthier backgrounds get all that and more, and the poorer students get none of it, we can't pretend the outcomes are the result of effort and talent. They're the result of uneven opportunity and testing. And this is what we need to address. Public schools must start identifying raw talent and nurturing it early. Coaches must look beyond polished and see potential. Parents must question the narrative that tutoring or training automatically means smarter or better. And policymakers must invest in after-school programs, mental health support, and community mentorship to bridge the resource gap. This isn't just about fairness, it's about national potential. How many brilliant kids have we already lost to the system? How many future innovators, leaders, and athletes have slipped through the cracks because we didn't give them the reps they needed to shine? Lastly, we live in a world where results matter. but we've stopped asking what's fueling the results. Is it talent or is it training? Is it effort or is it access? In academics and athletics, private resources have become performance enhancers, and the gap is widening every year. If we want to build a system that rewards true ability, not just the parents, we need to make changes. We need to see through, polish, and ask deeper questions and invest in kids who are being left behind. This episode is not an attack on kids in tutoring or elite programs. It's a call for us to recognize what we're really measuring, because if we keep mistaking access for ability, we'll keep missing out on real greatness. Anyhow, until next time, y'all, this is You're Probably Right. I'm MCM. Stay sharp. So I just wanted to add on to all that and just say, again, I don't have an issue with kids learning more and being able to do more and understanding more and all that stuff. But I believe that there should be some sort of declaration in an average school of kids, since teachers tend to, the funny thing is, administrators can do whatever they want, but it's another world in each classroom with the teachers, with decisions of how these kids are picked on teams, and what's being taught, what subjects are, what subject matter is being sifted through a little more pit, like maybe we're paying attention a little bit more to algebra and not moving on to something else until all the kids are up to snuff with the algebra, you know what I mean? Or maybe the geometry or whatever it is. Maybe about dribbling, maybe it's about wrist shots instead of snapshots or backhanders. Maybe it's about knowing how to clear the puck out of the zone on time. Maybe it's about offsides. Like, there's so many little intricate little spots where an untrained athlete, an untrained student may not realize certain rules, and you have teachers who teach certain things that they're not even good at. And when that happens, the kids almost left up to their own devices, them and their parents, maybe a study buddy, who knows. But there's a lot more that this conversation, I'm sure other people have had this conversation as well. And I know it's not just me. And I know that people have probably beaten the dead horse and really tried to get into this topic a lot more than I have. But for my listeners and people who listen to me, they're not necessarily the same people. I just kind of wanted to bring this to your attention if it hasn't been brought to your attention, or if you didn't know already, that if you can, get your kids access. But I think also, personally, I believe that there should be some rule of declaration as far as how much access has your kid had to this. How many reps do they shoot with a coach, right? And someone would argue, okay, well, do I have to declare that I have a basketball net on my garage? Obviously not, but you get what I'm saying. I understand. I mean, if you want to print off 50 sheets of math and have your kid do 14 every night, no matter what they did at school that day, they're going to get better, right? They might not necessarily get as good as one student would get with the actual tutor sitting beside them, right? And I think that's where it's different. If you let your kid come home and they practice something on their own according to what the teacher taught, and they're getting more reps that way, I think that's a good thing. But when you're actually giving extra tutelage, extra instruction, extra training, I think that's by a professional. I think that's different. Now, of course, again, somebody will say, okay, well, what if this parent is a teacher? And do you have to, I guess that's a gray area. If little Johnny's mother is a math whiz and she also teaches, is that professional help in math? Could be. Um, Maybe he just has the aptitude and the help from his mom. I'm just saying in general. I think if you go into an actual institution outside of school for whatever reason, in whatever subject or whatever athletic program, and they teach or they play those at that school or in that district or that city, then I think there is some way that educators in the public school system can differentiate between students who are, can I say, professionally trained outside of the regular school hours in actual public school system. There should be some division. Not to say that these guys are better than those guys, but these guys are more trained than those guys. Anyhow, it's a ongoing conversation and discussion, obviously, and I think there's a lot of wrinkles they could say. I guess they would say to iron out, but I think it needs to be looked at anyways. That's my whole point with this one, and hopefully I touched on everything more thoroughly than I would usually, and obviously, again, just me being one person, obviously there's lots of places this conversation could have gone, and it could have gone a lot longer. We're at 51 minutes and 51 minutes and 25 seconds or whatever we're at. But anyway, as I said before, this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. I will catch you next time. Take care, MC. I'm out. Hey, come check out You Probably Right podcast. Society is getting more unpredictable every day, but at the same time, predictable in its unpredictability. Say that 4 times real fast. Come with me as I attempt to find clarity in all the fog while staying way outside the box and kicking the box way down the road with my size 12 docs. I use the Bible, experience, education, fortune, misfortune, life's lessons, life's mistakes to sort through all the mess. I talk about news, God, God, self-help, sports, sickness, health, music, parenting, love, humbleness, hurt, pain, joy, and all the things that might make you say, I never thought of it that way. Hopefully, anyway. Also, I take a stab at answering tough and not so tough questions, and all the while understand that, listen, sometimes you end up in the hot seat and there's no thermostat. Well, that's how it is here. And because there's no topic, very few topics off the table, Torontonians will understand that Doug Ford reference there. Hopefully the podcast will be helpful and uplifting. And hey, maybe you'll find your own private Idaho here somewhere. Hope to see you soon.